Hey everybody, welcome back to the Krāv Show with Chris and JRuss, and this week we've got a good friend of mine, Nick Fener, is joining us for the podcast. How you doing, Nick?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah,
Good
man.
to see you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good to see you too, man. We're glad you're joining us this week, Nick. It's awesome to have you, man.
Thank you.
So I made a passing comment to Nick a couple weeks ago about his similarity. Like he just struck a pose on the packing mat, and he looked like Josh Brolin from the Avengers movie, where he's the what's his name? Thanos?
Yeah, the guy that plays Thanos.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
And
haven't
I'm going
seen
to be
it,
able to
so I can't comment. I've just seen the picture.
I haven't seen it either, but I've seen the pictures and I really like Josh Brolin. I'm going to
you
find it
pulled
here
the
cuz
picture. What are you doing?
it's I'm looking through my phone cuz Nick then sent me. Oh, there it is. Nick then sent me two pictures. One of himself and one of Josh Brolin. And
Well, no, you sent me the picture of Josh, and I said, "What?"
oh, did I?
Yeah, you sent it to me
Okay,
to
so
show
I
me what
sent
you're.
that that's the picture of Josh Brolin. It's
Yeah,
And then Nick took a picture for me of that, and he said, "Yeah, okay."
move it over just
Uh,
a little bit more. We didn't see
so
it.
I guess hopefully we'll get some comments from the audience about whether. I mean, you look like a freaking superhero. That's what I was saying.
Well, I'm
He said
glad you
it.
see me through that lens,
Yeah,
JRuss.
yeah, yeah. So let's see. Uh, oh, I could update you guys about a lot, but Nick's a local jumper at Sky Chicago, right? Why don't you give us your story, Nick? Don't let me do it.
Uh,
The current version, because we're going to talk about the past a little bit in detail.
okay. The current version is, I spend my summers with my wife at Skydiving Chicago, hanging with JRuss and the rest of the crew as much as possible. We've been coming out here for 9 years now, so this is our ninth. Yeah, this is our ninth season. Um, just trying to enjoy life. My wife's on an MFS team, and I'm their kind of backup camera guy when their camera guy's not around. So I shoot as much video as possible for them. I don't know what else are you looking for. I don't know what else to add to that.
I don't know. You like
Just enjoying
poker?
life, skydiving as much as I can.
What year did you start jumping?
I did my first jump at the end of 2001 in
Where was
Paris.
that at? In
Yeah,
Paris?
Paris, California. Yeah,
Okay.
and I jumped there for 7, 8 years as a fun, or maybe 5 or 6 years as a fun jumper. And then I was a plumber at the time, and I decided I didn't want to be a plumber anymore. So I got my ratings and became a tandem instructor, AFF, and shooting video, and became a full-time skydiving instructor for about 3 years. And man, those were good days. I love doing tandems. I wasn't crazy about AFF. I just did it because there was a lot of military stuff. But I love shooting taking people for tandems.
What about it did you like? Why was that so enjoyable?
You know, just being part of somebody's first experience is it just vibed with me, man. To be able to take somebody for their first jump and be able to like relive that moment with them, or be part of that moment and kind of relive my first jump through them again. I just found a lot of joy in that, and yeah, it was good, man. It was a lot of fun. If I could still do tandems, I would. I think I would still get a lot of joy out of it, but I'm too beat up to be doing that shit anymore. Not only am I getting older, but my it's not having it. I did one tandem after I got injured just to see if I could. A friend of mine was an examiner, and I was down in Mexico, and one night we were out drinking, and I said something like similar to that, like, "Oh, I wish I could do it." And he's like, "I'll let you take me tomorrow." And so in the morning we went and did a tandem. So it was fun. It was nice to get back on the horse after all the shit I'd been through. And
How
I
did it go?
realized,
Were
what's
you
that?
able to do it?
Yeah, it was all good. We landed on the beach in Mexico, and it was fine. You know, the skydiving part's the easy part for me. It was like getting to and from the plane with a 60-pound rig on my back, trying to
Yeah.
maneuver somebody to the door, not have my legs, and then carrying all the unpacked equipment back those were the hard parts. Like once we were to the door and out of the plane and skydiving, it was amazing.
Was the actual landing a problem or not? Not even that.
No, we landed on the beach and it was no problem. Nice soft landing. I can't remember if we stood it up or not, but the guy I was taking was really tall. He was like probably over 6 feet. So my guess is we probably slid it in.
And then you guys still you were telling me y'all spend some time at Paris Valley still, right?
No, I don't jump there anymore.
Oh, y'all don't jump there.
In the winter times, we do go back to California, but I'll jump at Elsinore. My wife's on an MFS team, and her teammate Joey lives in Sebastian or near Sebastian, so we'll go out there and jump in Florida. But I don't jump at Paris anymore.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons, but we don't need to get into that.
Yeah, that's fine. Y'all are going to be you're in Chicago right now. Y'all are going to be at Summerfest, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Wouldn't miss it.
Organizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I conned somebody into let me do some beginner intermediate free flying.
This guy.
The bar must be pretty low, huh, JRuss?
he couldn't find any other help.
People have been dropping like flies, which is good because I had way too many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I sent JRuss the hey, can I organize? I phrased it like, you won't hurt my feelings if you tell me no. I understand, but if you're down, I would love to do some organizing. And he came back, he's like, you're in, and I was like, sweet. So,
I mean, there's a UK skydiver named Alistair Hodgson, Al, and he stepped on a landmine. I want to hazard a guess at Afghanistan, but I don't honestly know that. And he and I never got to be like super tight buddies or anything. We talked a couple days when I was in Eloy. He lost his legs from the knee down, and I went on a free fly jump with him, and he could fly head down, but he was bullet just rocket ship fast. I mean, he didn't have anything to put out there to slow him down. And then we went on a pylon race where 2 people held tubes. This was kind of, I don't know, 15 years ago or 18 years ago when Eloy was still rocking it pretty hard on the fun jumper scene and like good organizers. And not that the organizers are bad, but whatever. So the 2 organizers held the tubes, and I think I was a tunnel instructor at the time, and I thought of myself as a pretty good flyer, and it took me 3 laps to pass Al, and it was only because he saw me coming, and he got a little nervous, and he started really stepping on the gas, and he swung one of the turns wide, and I cut inside of it. That little fucker could fly, and so you being not able to organize fun jumpers is number 1 is bullshit. Number 2, I've seen you fly and you can fly. And number 3, I will never forget those jumps with Al. Ever. Just the fact that his physical body was different than mine and we're jumping together and he's totally able to, man, he did anything he wanted to. Like I said, it was, his head down was fucking fast. Like I had to pin it, but otherwise he's coping with what he's got the same way that everybody else is. So, I think that when you are organizing at Summerfest, there's going to be a bunch of people with a couple hundred jumps who you're going to organize, and they're going to be like, fuck, man, I'm jumping with a guy who's got prosthetics, like, and he's showing me what's up. They're never going to forget those jumps. Never. And so
cool.
You might be the most memorable guy of all of the stuff that happens there. Way more memorable than the shitbag in the bright green suit.
I doubt that.
So
thanks for that.
No, I know it's true. I mean, there were 2 people holding those tubes that day. I don't remember those people, but I remember that little fucker Al almost beat me around the track for a 4th lap. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of reasons why I asked John. Nick was joking around before the podcast about, I don't know why JRuss asked me to be on, but for sure you do know. And then but there's only so long we can go without sort of telling a little bit of the backstory. And one of the things that I think last week, somebody had a question about, what was that woman's question? It was like wing loading and how to be more accurate under canopy with really light wing loading. And sometimes she goes up, and in part of the conversation that Chris and I had, because it was just us last week, there was a time where we talked about, like, if you hit turbulence on a lightly loaded canopy that's not cross braced, how are you going to deal with that? And certainly your experience highlights, the possibilities of turbulence when you're under canopy. And at least as much as probably any human being alive, you thought about that situation and what are the right ways to deal with it, and what can you do to help yourself if you encounter that situation. So without a ton of further setup, I'm curious if you would kind of backtrack and you had an injury from, as I understand it, going through a dust devil close to the ground, and that's something that most people who they're not around to talk to us about that experience. And I'm not a guy that likes to throw around the word miraculous because it's not my belief system, but somewhat miraculous that you're still here to have a chat with us, considering the circumstances that you went through. So if you would just kind of bring us up to speed on sort of how that happened and what the specifics of the circumstance was, and what you remember, and probably going to ask you some questions afterwards about lessons you might have learned as far as what people can take away.
Okay. So in 2011, I was coming in to land. By the way, I was flying a Chaos 83, which is a cross-brace canopy. They're not very common anymore because they have had a few issues over the years. I can't speak too educatedly about all the issues, but I found out afterwards that they are known for collapsing. But anyways, I was coming in to land. I was shooting video for a tandem, and about roughly 50 feet off the ground, my parachute just folded in half. Everybody that saw it said it looked like I hit a telephone pole right in the middle, and my end cells just met. And it just dropped me straight down that 50 feet. Do you want me to talk about my injuries or just what happened?
I want this to be as organic from you as you want to say, and then if we've got questions, I just thought of one, but keep going.
Okay, no worries. So yeah, basically parachute collapse. I fell straight down. There wasn't much over my head. I'm not 100% whether it was a dust devil. I always blame it on a dust devil, but finding out later on that it was mid-May. It wasn't super hot. There was no dust devils in the area, but it's not like you always see them, right?
But Paris Valley is notorious for dust devils.
Super known for having dust devils. So, I mean, I do blame it on that, but I'm not 100%. There's 3 criteria that happened that day. I hit some kind of turbulence. Chaoses are known for collapsing, and my parachute was manufactured incorrectly, which they found out afterwards. So I had my beat 2 lines were 4 inches too short on both sides, which created some kind of abnormality.
4 inches? Did you say 4 inches?
4 inches, yeah. Yeah, so it was those 3 things that broke the chain, basically.
Can I ask, how many jumps did you have on that canopy, roughly?
I would say less than 50. It was a newer canopy. And I had an older Chaos 83, and so I could compare the old one to the new one, and they never flew right. And I had 2 of them. I got 2 brand new ones. And I always just kind of contributed it to the fact that they were brand new, and so they just flew differently. But both of them were screwed up. They ended up finding out that there was a problem in their assembly line, and it shows. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I think the problem might be mine.
Yeah. Anyways, those are the 3 criteria, but I definitely hit some kind of turbulence, and
Yeah.
how or why I lived through it, JRuss, is would you use miraculous? I just think it's luck. Like somehow or another, I got lucky that day. Yeah.
And so you
Mhm.
collapsed at around 50 feet, not a lot of fabric over your head, or what is there is not very flyable. And you landed on your feet. Is that correct?
Yeah, I basically landed on my feet. Yeah.
Okay.
So when I hit the ground, without getting too graphic, well, whatever, my shins went right through the bottoms of my shoes. And so my feet hit, my butt hit, and then I did like a front flip. So I ended up burst fracturing 2 vertebrae in my spine, L4 and L5, and pretty much demolished my legs, and my spleen ruptured. Were the 3 major injuries that I had.
Man.
So
Spleen rupturing is dangerous, huh?
yeah, I would say within a couple hours they removed it. Like as soon as they got me in, that was the first thing that they were addressing. I was basically bleeding out. So
Yeah.
they removed my spleen, and then they basically just flipped me over and started working on my spine.
Man.
So
And
I had 12 screws and a bunch of rods, and they basically put Humpty Dumpty back together. But the 2 vertebrae that I crushed were like basically at belly button level, L4, L5, so pretty low on my spine. When I came out of that surgery, they told my wife that my spinal cord damage was so severe that I would never walk again. So that's basically what I woke up to, is the prognosis that I was going to be in a wheelchair forever, which I never really believed, to be perfectly honest with you. Yeah, I couldn't wrap my head around that concept, which I think probably had something to do with my recovery. Like I never would accept the fact that I was going to be in a wheelchair. So I stuck with the idea that I would be able to walk again, which I was lucky enough to find out I could.
And you had sometime after your accident, you and Lindsay had something like a documentary made about your experience and the progress coming back
Yeah, a buddy of
from it.
mine, a skydiving friend of ours, approached us a couple months afterwards. I don't know, 6-8 months afterwards, and he wanted to do a documentary about from the time I got injured to my first skydive back. And yeah, they made he did a really good job and made a pretty cool documentary. It's called Get Busy Living. Somewhere out there on the internet, you can find it.
I watched it. Steph and I watched it. And if I recall correctly, you had to, I don't know whether advocating for yourself or arguing with doctors is the right way to say it, but you basically had to push them to remove your legs. Is that right?
Yeah.
Lower legs.
Yeah. So, after a week or so went by, maybe 2 weeks, and I was off all the super hardcore drugs and starting to be able to like have conversations with my wife and think about like how rough my injuries were. Basically, I couldn't feel anything below my knees anyways, and they wanted to fuse my ankles or my shins to my ankles to my feet and shorten. I was missing 3 inches of bone in my right leg. They wanted to shorten me and then fuse all that together. And I'm like, man, I'm never going to be able to walk on those. So, yeah, Lindsay and I decided together that I would have a better chance of walking if I didn't have my legs. So they amputated about 6 inches below my knees. And yeah, the doctors didn't want to do it. I remember distinctly having an argument with one of the doctors because I was pushing to have my legs amputated, and he yelled at me like, "We don't just amputate, or we don't just cut people's limbs off here." And I was like, "You do if you're me, man. Like these things are trashed. I have no chance of walking with them." So, anyways,
Did he acknowledge that? Like how did he acknowledge that you're not going to walk if you keep those?
you know, I'm not 100% if he acknowledged that or not. I think doctors have a very like save mentality, and I think that in my mind, I was just like, man, if they don't cut them off now, they're going to come off eventually. Like I was going to get some kind of infection. I had big holes in my ankles, and
Yeah.
you don't expose your bones to dirt and not expect to have infections and all that. So I don't know. I feel like they were trying to use me as a science experiment. I was in a teaching hospital, and they were going in every couple days and digging around on my legs, and it wasn't good.
And during
So,
that process, I don't remember from the documentary, but was there a time that you considered not skydiving, or was that a goal all along? Like I'd like to get back to jumping.
yeah, it was pretty much like one of the main goals I set super early on. Um, yeah, if I can remember not too long before my injury, like I'll say within the 6 months prior, Lindsay and I were having a conversation because we had another friend die skydiving, and we were having the conversation about like at what point do you not want to live or don't want to like continue on or whatever. And I was like, if I can't skydive, like I think that would be a major deciding factor for me, of whether an injury is so bad that I'm not capable of jumping anymore. Like that's kind of a gauge, I guess you could say. And so yeah, I mean, to me, after I got injured, it was like the one thing that I was shooting for to get healthy enough to be able to get back to jumping, which it took about 1.5 years, and I think that was even too soon to jump. But yeah, we got back to it about 1.5 years later.
What was that? What was that first jump like? Like emotionally and mentally, what was that like?
Mentally, it was funny. It was such a to-do to get to that point, like all the therapy, everything that I had to go through to get to that point. And having this goal so far off out into the future, when it finally came, it was, to me, just like, I wasn't even that worked up about it. Everybody else around me was. My wife was terrified. The guy that agreed to let me jump at his drop zone, which super huge shout out to Rich Grimm, who owned Tsunami Skydivers down in Oceanside. He's the one that puts on a lot of exotic boogies. So anyways, he allowed me to come jump there. Yeah, everybody else was just terrified of me getting injured. And Rich goes, man, if you hurt yourself, I'm going to kill you. I remember him telling me that. But yeah, to me, it was just a way to get back to my life. So that day, all I wanted to do was just get out of the plane and show everybody I could do it so that I could start jumping again. It was an awesome day, man. We had probably had a couple hundred people out there. They made a big event out of it. All my friends, all the people from therapy, other injured people that were injured in my therapy course or classes, and my therapist and all my friends, skydivers, non-skydivers, my family. It was a pretty cool event. So yeah. It was fun.
That's really cool. That's cool.
So the question that I thought of, and this is interesting. I don't know if that's the right word. So like you guys or anybody who sticks around the sport for a long time, you're gonna lose some friends. And I've had a couple that the one or two that come to mind instantly are Ryan Risberg and Matt Munting, who Ryan was killed doing a speed flying run, and Matt was killed scouting a base jump for a wingsuit base jump, and you don't get to talk to those guys, but their awareness was good enough, so high, very experienced skydivers, jumpers, and base jumpers, and what they were very experienced in what they were doing, that they knew what was happening. They knew right then what was happening, and I've wondered sort of how you treat those last moments. And you don't normally get to talk to anybody who's been through that, and I've never put two and two together with that thought that has occurred to me several times in the past of like, man, I wish I could just chat with them, because like a lot of other people, if that happens to me, I'd like to meet that moment with as much dignity as I could, you know? What do you remember about those moments? What do you remember about just prior to hitting the ground? Do you remember?
I don't, JRuss. I don't remember. I don't remember that whole week.
Wow.
Yeah, when shortly after so I was in like an induced coma for about a week, a little over a week. But once I came back around, that question came up quite a bit. People were asking, or my wife, and everybody's like, "What do you remember?" The last thing I could remember was being in Vegas like a week earlier.
Wow.
But yeah, man, I hit my head pretty good. I didn't have any kind of like brain injury, but it knocked me out. And I watched the video. So I was shooting video for a tandem on that particular jump. And I watched the video to try and like maybe stir up some memory. And to me, it was just another tandem video like the other 1,000 that I had shot. It didn't help jar anything. It didn't jar anything loose. So to be perfectly honest with you, I can't remember a damn thing from that. Which I think is the body and the brain protecting itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So Nick, do you remember Chris Colwell? You remember that name?
Chris Colwell. I don't.
If I would have been doing this podcast, he would have joined us at some point. A lot of people have seen his video because in I think the late 90s or maybe right around 2000, he was coaching a jumper head down. And it's on a fisheye, like an old fisheye, and so it's a big guy. The student's not wearing a helmet. This is how long ago it was. And they go out head down and they turn a few points, and then the guy sinks out. He's a big dude. And Chris went to a sit, spotted him, I think on his back, went back to head down to cover the distance, and the guy bellied out to try and make it back to Chris. And Chris hit him in a head down orientation, and that was the end of his mobility, really. And then the rest of the video is him spiraling down because he was instantly paralyzed. And then his reserve fires, and that's the rest of the video. And he and I got to be friends because he came over to work with us in Dubai for a while, and then Steph and I and a couple other friends helped him out with a living space when he got back from Dubai. And during that time of sort of helping his living space, we got to be pretty good friends. And one of the things that he said, I mean, his video has, I don't know how many, 1 million views maybe, but he had trouble estimating how many times he had watched it. In trying to, I mean, you can't go back and change that kind of stuff, but just, you know, his own darkest moments of analyzing what had happened and what could I have done differently. And how many times have you watched that video? Did you just watch it a couple times to jog your memory and then it didn't work?
I can't say I watched it a whole bunch, but I watched it several times to try and see if I could figure out what happened or if anything came of it. Probably less than 20 times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In your watching the video, or I imagine that you had quite a bit of downtime, just lost in your own thoughts. What did you come up with? I know it's hard because you can't really remember what happened in the moment, but like, did you come up with, what would I do if that happened again? What did I do? What does the video give you any recreation of the response that you had to the situation? Was it the right one? Was it the wrong one? And basically, are there things that other people can take away as far as what you've analyzed or what you've sort of theory crafted about that moment of loss of stability? Now, granted, beelines that are 4 inches short is crazy. Like that shocks me. And so I guess if a mouse farted in Mexico on bee lines that were 4 inches too short, that might have collapsed your canopy. But what'd you come up with? What do you think?
Oh man, see, you're a deep thinker, JRuss. I'm kind of a simple guy.
I don't believe that for a second.
That's a good question. I'm not really sure if I have a good solid answer, man. When I think back, the things that I could have done differently would have been not fly that particular canopy for one. Research or know more about the company. Like as soon as that happened to me, people were telling me like, "Oh, chaos is collapse," and I had never heard that before. But as far as like when I think what could I have done differently at 50 feet or whatever when a parachute collapses, like I feel like when you're that low, it happens. I mean, that's a second or two and I'm on the ground, right? Like I'm not sure there's much that I could have done to recover from that. I wasn't doing a high performance turn, which I do believe that if I was, I probably would have blasted through whatever I hit. We were just doing 90s because we had some incidents at the drop zone, so they kind of limited us to that. I wish I had a better answer for you, JRuss. I'm not sure there was anything I could have done differently.
That's pretty low.
At that, if you're a couple 100 feet off the ground, correct me if I'm wrong, but I almost feel like you just need to let the canopy fly, right? Like let it go into full flight and reinflate. I feel like if you start doing more input, you could potentially make things worse.
Yeah,
but I'm certainly not an expert when it comes to canopy flight.
I mean, that was my first thought when you told just kind of the basic story, what happened. My first thought was that's a scary story because it sounds like there's nothing that you could have done. Like it just happened. Yeah. And to me that's kind of scary. Like, wow, that can just happen, and that you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't make a mistake. You weren't doing something you shouldn't have done. You weren't acting it
would have been easier if I could say, I had a swooping accident, right? Like we could blame it on, but I'm of the opinion that I just had some bad luck that day.
Yeah.
And some good luck.
Well, some good luck.
Yes. God, JRuss, I wish I had a better answer for you, man, because I know you're trying to like pull something out to help the listeners, learn something from this.
Well, I mean, if there's lessons to be learned, when bad things happen to good people, if we don't try and learn those lessons, what's the point?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, 50 feet is pretty low. And when you said that 50 feet, there was nothing I could really do. That we had an employee in Dubai who did a stall surge at 400 feet, and his cross brace canopy collapsed from turbulence, and he went in from 400. There was no time. One of the reasons why I think you and I have talked in the past about stall surges, and I did my best to dissuade you of that practice.
You changed my landing because of that conversation.
Yeah.
You did the same thing to me too, Nick.
Yeah. I don't do stall surges at all anymore. It's all harness.
How do you feel
about that?
Yeah.
I enjoy them way more. It's easier on my arms. I feel like it's safer. I'm not. I think the argument or the thing you brought up was twofold: the possibility of having your canopy collapse, but also you're basically throwing the brakes on in the final part of a landing pattern. So if there's somebody right behind you, and all of a sudden you go into a full stall, you've just potentially jammed up somebody behind you and created a safety concern. So.
Yeah.
That's the exact same thing he said to me when we were jumping together one day. And of course he said he's very diplomatic about it, very kind, but changed my routine. And he said,
Wow.
imagine you're exiting the highway going 75 miles an hour, and somebody on the exit ramp just slams on their brakes. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. It's fine if you're in the sky by yourself.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen that often. Yeah, I mean, I've told that to many people, and I don't know who I can't, there's some Canopy coaches who coach that from low altitude, and I just disagree. But I mean, we're all product of our experiences, and that was one of mine. And if you never have to go through losing another person because they collapsed to 400 feet, that'd be nice. Yeah. And so, what were your disciplines prior to the injury, Nick? Like, were you free flyer?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I would say I was an intermediate to an advanced free flyer. That's pretty much all I did: free flying and coach. I organized at Paris a little bit, and it was all free flying as well. But I got into free flying pretty quick too. I did a couple, maybe 100 belly jumps, and of course got the free fly bug, and never really looked back from there.
And what about now? You mostly free flying? Is that pretty much
Yeah, so I
what you
can't
know?
really. It's kind of funny. So the way they fused my back together, I can't even fly flat. I'm actually, well, like me in a full arch is actually probably flat flying. They kind of fused my back a little bit, hunched forward. So for me to fly on my belly, I'm super slow, and it's kind of embarrassing. I've done a handful of, like they want to do a BFR or something, and
Yeah.
I'm like way up here, and so I'm trying to like dive down, and I end up it's pretty terrible, to be perfectly honest with you. My belly
But
flying. So yeah, I pretty much free fly, and really gotten into angle flying the last couple of
okay,
years.
that's what I was going to ask you. It sounds
Mhm.
like they fused you just right for movement, man.
Yeah. Honestly, I agree with you, Chris. I think I feel like I picked up angle flying pretty decently. I was always for years, ever since. I've always been like, screw angle flying. I don't want to. And a couple of years ago, I kind of changed my mind, because everybody's doing it, right? So I'm like, I want to at least be proficient at it. So, yes, I took a couple angle classes with Dan and Leslie, angle classes with Dan and Leslie, and ended up going to Florida and doing a Fly for Life camp, and got a little bit of a passion for it, a little bit of a bug, but I still like free flying better.
Yeah. Well, man, maybe at Summerfest we can all find an opportunity to make a jump together or something. That'd be fun.
Absolutely.
We'll
Yeah.
we'll
I got 3 days in a row off, so I'll be out there jumping for sure.
yeah, that sounds awesome. Well, on the topic of angle flying, or well, JRuss, before I change topics. What else do you want to? What other questions or things you want to talk about?
I was gonna just generally ask about sort of what are the challenges that, kind of a cardboard cutout question of what are the challenges as it's changed your life. Those moments that's a life-changing event, right? And but you're still free flying. You don't do tandems. You're still swooping. I've seen if there's a little bit of wind, you stand up your landing, which I think is pretty epic.
Thanks.
And yeah, just wondering kind of if there's something that stands out in your mind as far as, well, this is, I mean, it's probably a long list, but this is absolutely, I can't do this, or I won't do this, or whatever.
It's funny. I've pretty much adapted to every situation. The one, it's funny. The one thing that I won't do again that I tried is ice skating. I won't ice skate again. That fucking sucked. It took me about an hour to get around the rink.
I don't think you're missing anything, man. As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's always the one thing that when people ask me, like, is there anything you can't do, or whatever. I feel like I can do everything I used to do. It's just much different. I'm an old man at 46. I'm 80 years old in a 46-year-old busted up body. So I move slower. But I feel like I've adapted everything like JRuss says, I still fly my Canopy and have fun doing that. I can still free fly. I'm not as, I believe, I'm not as good of a free flyer as I was before I got injured. And I've got a couple thousand skydives and probably 20 or 30 hours in the tunnel. And, you know, I feel like I'm fairly, there's some limitations on my skill set, but I also believe that it's just more time. Like I'm not getting it as easy because one of the things that's JRuss spent years dealing with this with me in the tunnel, where I couldn't have drag below my knees. The prosthetics I was wearing were so bulky behind my knee. I had like 2 layers of material behind my knee, the way the connection worked for that prosthetic. I wasn't able to bend my knee enough. And so I couldn't have a jumpsuit that went below my knee, because if I was sit flying, it would just catch wind and it would take me for a ride.
Oh, I see.
Which, going on your head, not having drag below your knees, significantly speeds you up.
Yeah.
Kind of like what he was talking about with Al, where you're just hauling ass. So in the sky, that's okay, because you don't, you know, whatever. It's everybody else just has to speed up. But like in the tunnel, I mean, shit, how much time did we spend in that damn tunnel trying to get me on my head? A long time. And what I ended up doing to adapt was I had a vertical suit made out of all ZP. So it gave me as much lift as possible. So for flying on my head, it was cool because I was getting the lift from the jumpsuit. But as soon as I flipped over to a sit, it would shoot me to the top of the tunnel, which was a freaking nightmare. So now I have a different set of legs, which allow me to bend my knee more. I don't have as much material behind my knee. And just changing the prosthetic and being able to bend my knee that extra 15 degrees has allowed me to now be able to put a jumpsuit below the knee.
Yeah, so now head up is not an issue.
I didn't catch that.
Now head up is fine. You can fly head up, no problem now.
Head up, head down. It's being able to have that extra mobility has now like opened my whole world up. But it took.
What did it take? How come you have new prosthetics?
How come? Because I had to beg my damn prosthetist. He didn't believe I could walk in these legs, or he didn't believe I'd be comfortable in these legs.
But there was a couple of weeks where it was like hands across Illinois trying to find your leg.
Oh, you're talking about that. Yeah. So, so 2 years ago, yeah, damn it. That was the new system, by the way. That was the new system. I was hoping you wouldn't bring this up. I lost a leg on opening. One of my legs fell off. So, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Hanging up on a locker in Chicago.
Yeah.
It fell off in free ball?
It was, god damn, it was such a hot fucking day. I was sweating like crazy. And these liners are like, they're made out of silicone, and they don't breathe at all. So when you're sweating, you're basically just pulling fluid up under the liner. So on a hot day in Chicago, on like the 10 or 15 minute call, I take my legs off, I dry them, I put them back on, I go on the load. And that's part of my routine on any hot, sweaty day is at the 10 or 15 minute call, I'm drying my legs. Otherwise, you run the risk of getting so much sweat under there that the thing falls off. And at that point, I wasn't wearing any kind of securing devices. Now I have a jumpsuit that goes down over the leg, but at that point I wasn't. I was just jumping with my prosthetics. Anyways, yeah, it was hot as hell. I was sweating my balls off on the way up to altitude, and when I jumped out, I was sit flying, and as soon as I flipped over to my head, I felt it come loose. Like, not come off, but like come loose. And so I rolled onto my back, and I just grabbed my leg, and I was like holding on to it while my buddies are trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing. And in those moments, that like 30 seconds, I was like, will it stay on through opening or not? And I made the wrong decision. I thought it would. I could have easily, it's just a pin system. You push a button and the leg comes off. I should have just reached down and popped the leg off and held onto it and pitched. But I was like, it'll be all right. And when I pitched, my leg swung out in front of me, and one of them was like, I just watched it cartwheel away from me. And it disappeared in 2 seconds. It was gone. I was like, oh my God, like I'm trying to figure out where the hell I was so frazzled. I didn't even like triangulate where I was at. So yeah, the whole drop zone, well, not the whole drop zone, but 20 or 30 people are out hiking through cornfields and soybean fields trying to find the missing leg for a while. It never was found. Well, let me rephrase that. We never found it. It ended up landing in west of us. We have like a Christmas tree farm that's got 20-foot trees now. And it landed in that farm in like 4 feet weeds. So my wife spent about a week hiking through that farm trying to find it. And unless you kicked it, you weren't finding it. So the farmer found it once the snow melted. Snow fell and killed everything and melted away. He found it laying out there about 6 months later, and at that point it was garbage.
Yeah.
I'd already had my legs replaced.
Man.
So yeah, that one sucked. So now I don't skydive without something holding my legs on. Like these legs I have now, I have a little bungee cord. I don't know if you can see this, but I drilled a hole in my socket. I have a little bungee cord, and I connect this to my swoop shorts. So that's what I wear when I'm wearing the shorts, and then I have a full vertical suit that I had custom made, and it just kind of comes down and over the end of my socket, so it couldn't fall off.
Yeah.
But I had to learn that the hard way.
Man.
So I wanted to just talk about another thing that came out of your incident, but only really because I don't think a lot of people are more than just casually aware of what phantom pain is. But to you, it's a incredible reality, and we've had a couple discussions about it because probably exhibiting what Lindsay calls the Dunning-Kruger effect. I read a book about phantom pain, so I felt that I was in a position to talk about it. But
was this phantoms in the brain?
Yeah, that's the one. But I was curious if you I know that it's not a sunny point of your life. In fact, it's pretty rough when it happens, but just to share what it is and how it affects you.
So what is it? Phantom pain, whoever they are, can't actually put their finger on what it is because hopefully they'd be able to fix it. But basically the brain still thinks that my limbs are still there, and the nerves are cut, obviously, because the limb's gone. And so it's kind of like if you cut an extension cord, there's still power going to the end of that extension cord, but it has nowhere to go. And that's basically what's going on in my legs. So I can't like wiggle my toes or feel my feet. Like my legs feel completely dead and numb, but I get sensations in my legs. So I get electrical burning, pins and needles. The real bad ones are like a stabbing sensation where it feels like something's just like being stabbed through my foot or toes. And it's very specific. Like I can tell you, it's not like it just hurts down there. It's as if I took a needle, Chris, and I stuck that needle in between your big toe and your next toe, like stuck it in the middle there. And without looking, you could tell what I was touching, right?
Yeah.
That's how it feels. Like it's the specific spot in wherever the pain is.
Wow.
Like I can tell exactly what part of, if Lindsay gives me her foot, I can tell it hurts right here on her foot.
I've heard of phantom pain before, but I had no idea that it was like that. A specific. That's wow. And I did not.
And it's all over. Like it's all over it's never in one spot. It'll be in one spot one day or 1 week or whatever. It'll be in another. Or sometimes I have what I call them fireworks shows, where it just feels like shit's just going off all over my feet. And then the other way I like to explain it is with volume. So, like volume on your stereo, sometimes the volume's low and it's just kind of in the background sensations or pains or whatever, and it's much more bearable. And other times it's like the volume's been turned all the way up.
Yeah.
And it's really like intense, whatever the sensation is that I'm having.
How often does that happen, and is there anything that you can do for it?
Daily. Sometimes I'll go days without it, but I'd say I get some form of sensation in my feet daily. Night times are usually the worst. During the day when I'm out and about, moving around and living life, I can kind of push it off to the side and it doesn't bother me as much, or I'm not focusing my energy on it. But as soon as I lay down at night, it's like the whole world quiets, and then that amplifies. I've gone weeks, maybe months without it, and then I've gone. Right now, I'm uncharacteristically in a long spout of it. Spurt. Right now, I think I did something. I think my back injury and my phantom pains are connected. Actually, I don't think. I'm pretty confident of it. And I jacked my back up in the wind tunnel a couple months ago, and it seems like ever since then, the phantom pains have been almost every night. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping it goes away. That like nonstop bother that it's been the last couple months. But normally it comes and it goes, and Lindsay and I have spent years trying to figure out: is it my diet? Is it drinking alcohol, not drinking alcohol, my environment, things of that nature. The only thing that I can tell you that I've deduced is like on a rainy day, and I've heard this before from other, like my prosthetist told me about it, is like when the barometric pressure changes, sometimes that can affect it. And then infections. If I get an infection in my body, it seems to get worse. So maybe it has something to do with inflammation. But I'll tell you what, it sucks. I don't know how much more detail you guys want to know about it, but it's if I could change one thing about like the residuals of all the shit that I deal with, it would be to not have that. It can be pretty distracting of life or in life. So, but with that being said, it's the cards I've been dealt, and it makes me enjoy when I don't have it or whatever's going on good in my life that much more. Like I try and just focus on the good shit and just know that that's part of the game. I think we all deal with some kind of pains, or whether it's physical or emotional or mental, and it's where you put your energy, right? Like where you put your mindset. And to me, I just try and know that that's part of my life, and I'm not gonna dwell on it. It just sucks, and fuck it. I'm gonna keep enjoying it.
my wife, well, my whole family, they went and watched that movie. It's Inside Out 2. You know what I'm talking about? It's a cartoon.
No. Is it a new movie?
Yeah, it's in theaters right now. It's basically about emotion, and it's the second one. So I saw the first one, and it's basically you meet these characters inside this little girl's, I guess, mind or heart or whatever, and each character is a different emotion. And so this is the sequel. And I didn't see this one yet, but they all said it was a fantastic movie. And one of the things that kind of comes out in the movie is the little girl who we're actually seeing all the emotions inside of her, and each emotion is a character. One of the characters is joy. And so basically, kind of at the end of the movie, the little girl, she chooses, like kind of internally, she chooses for joy to be in charge. And for joy to kind of control she wants joy to be in charge. You didn't say that exactly, but what you just said made me think of that. Just that idea, that mentality of like trying to choose joy. And even though I didn't see the movie, my wife telling me about it and thinking about it, like I've been kind of thinking about that a lot, just over the past few days. But just like, man, when I'm anxious or I'm stressed out or I'm worried or I'm in physical pain because of injuries or whatever, like you said, we all deal with crap. We all do.
Yeah.
It's like, man, sometimes I can say I want to choose joy, but it's so hard right now.
Yeah.
So hard.
Well, you get lost in your own head, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So,
I'm a firm believer in you create your own reality. So, Like, where you put your energy or where you focus your mindset is how your life's going to be. So you can focus on all the pain and all the shit and all the things that are wrong in your life, or you can try and focus on the good things, you know, the love in your life, the awesome skydiving, the cool friends, the rad family, all the things that actually do matter, and try and, I mean, you can only occupy your brain with so much at a time, right? So where do you focus at?
Yeah.
I try. I mean, I'd be lying if I set out and spend a lot of time. I shouldn't say a lot of time. Some time in a poor me, or this sucks, or I never have the why me, but just the I wish this wasn't the case. But as soon as I recognize that I'm doing that, I try and pull my head out of my ass and get back on track, because it ain't going to change anything, right?
Yeah.
It is.
Well,
what
it is going
is.
to change. It's going to make it worse if you keep doing that.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, for sure.
But that doesn't make it easy to get out of it.
Yeah.
At least not for me. I said, like, come on, man. Yeah. Well, is it okay if I change the subject for a sec, JRuss?
No, please do.
Yeah, sure.
We're coming up on an hour, but I had a really good argument with my friend John yesterday, and we were talking specifically about angle flying, but specifically about breakoffs. So I'm going to try to phrase the question in a way that doesn't tell you what my opinion is. I'm going to try to just do it unbiased. Like, if you were going to communicate to a group of jumpers at breakoff, when you break off from an angle jump, what should they be referencing for their breakoff line? Like, what is the reference point for breakoff? Do you understand the question?
I believe so. Yeah, like how do you gauge what angle you're going to take to break off?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking?
If you could make it just the most, like, just simplify it as much as possible. Like, this is what they need to be thinking about when they decide their angle of breakoff. Yeah. I think that's how we would. I think he would agree with me that that's a good phrasing of the question.
Okay. If I'm understanding it correctly, what you're asking is, how do you decide what angle to go, or what are you looking at to? Mm-hmm. I'm looking at the leader, so okay. I'm going to change my. I'm referencing the leader.
Okay.
So, the leader is going to continue going straight, right? Or hopefully. And I guess it depends how big's the group is one of the things. Okay. But I reference my angle off of him, because if I'm on my back, I can't see the ground, right? Mm-hmm. So the only thing I can see is him going in this direction, and I need to decide to take a different angle off of him. So I'm going to reference him as my center point, I guess you would say. And if I'm on my belly, I guess you can use that as well, but also you can use the ground to change direction. Is that?
Okay, a second ago you said it depends on the size of the group. Why'd you say that? What did you mean by that?
Well, I mean, if it's you and just a couple people, then you have a lot more of a vector. Is that the right word to use? You have a larger vector that you can use as the space to take. But if it's a larger group, then everybody's got to kind of fan out evenly.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna argue back with whatever you guys say. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Go, JRuss, what?
Well, I agree with Nick that for most people, at the end of an angle fly jump or a tracking jump, the leader is going to hopefully slowly flatten out, but then continue in a straight line, as almost required that the leader do that, so that everyone has a reference point, especially considering that a lot of people are not super familiar with the drop zone, and if they don't have that stable reference point, that they haven't been looking at the ground the whole jump. They've been looking at the leader the whole jump. And so if I was in Scottish Chicago or Sebastian or someplace that I know very well, and I didn't look at the leader, but I knew kind of the general pathway. I was watching the leader, sorry, and I knew the general pathway we were taking, and I knew what jump run was, and I had all the information as if I was the leader. Then perhaps I could make that decision without referencing the leader, but I still think that would be I wouldn't be taking in all of the available information, and I think that would be a mistake if I didn't look at the leader for most of it. I mean, I could take in other information, but
say that again. I thought I was
well,
following you.
If I just decided to break off based on what I knew the jump run was and what our planned flight path was, I could make serious critical errors with people that are around me. And those are all tidbits of information that you should have before you go on the jump. But what the leader is doing, I mean, I struggle to, I wouldn't understand a break off from a movement jump where the leader didn't go straight. You'd really have to, do some like wizardry to convince me that was not a bad call.
Okay. All right. So basically, John, my friend John, he said almost exactly what you guys were saying. I said something different. So, JRuss, based on what your last comment, where you said you can't think of a scenario or whatever, I don't know how you said it, but where the leader wouldn't go straight.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say you're on a jump with 4 people. So the leader and 3 other people, and everyone's flying on their belly. Okay. So in that scenario, right, if the leader, and this was my argument to him, why I think I would say, my argument to him was like, I don't think you're breaking off from the leader, you're breaking off from everyone. You're referencing the whole group. Because if you're flying 4 people and the leader continues to go straight, right? That means the guy, let's just say there's one guy, so I'm the leader, there's one guy to my right and 2 guys to my left. If I keep going straight, that means there's 2 guys on my left that are sharing 90 degrees. And there's one guy on my right, and he has the entire 90 degrees to himself. So because I went straight, I'm forcing those 2 guys to share 90 degrees, and I'm giving him his own 90. I'm not maximizing separation. Whereas if the reference point is the whole group, like you just reference everyone, then that means I, as the leader, even though I'm the leader, I still have to turn off of straight. And he goes, the guy to my right goes, let's just say for the sake of argument, he goes 90, whether that's right or wrong. And then the other 2 guys, they share that 90. So everybody's maximizing separation.
Okay. Can I break that down for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
He and I had a really good, we argued for like an hour about it. It was really good.
What's the maximum? You said it, but what's the maximum you can turn from the leader's final line?
Well, max 90.
Max 90. And why is that?
Well, because otherwise you're turning towards another group, you're turning back towards jump run, or yeah, I mean,
the biggest reason that I can think of, and it used to be very commonly that if you were out of the jump, you would turn 180 and go away from the jump. What if someone else is out of the jump coming forward and they didn't turn 180? What if you turn around and go more than 90 degrees and there's someone that was way behind who hasn't heard their ditter and didn't understand, even though you briefed it, that when everyone breaks off, you break off. 90 degrees is the maximum to avoid a head-to-head collision, right?
Sure, yes.
So that one guy who's over on the side, who's not the leader, he's a follower in this moment. How does he base his maximum turn if you continue to turn towards him?
He would base it. I see what you're saying. I would say he would base it off of the line of the direction of flight at the time of breakoff.
You're giving that dude a lot of credit.
Really?
Yeah. Not only number one, I mean, it only works in this really small person, like 3-person scenario where the 90 degrees could potentially be shared. And I would disagree there that 2 guys sharing 90 degrees is any kind of hardship at all. So there's no real reason to favor one side to give those guys more than 45 degrees, because 2 people on one side is a wide open skydive. So, but I think that you're potentially endangering that single person if they don't or are unable to take in the information in the same way that you are, and you have taken away their lighthouse. You are the lighthouse. and they look back at you and they're like, okay, I'm on 90 degrees. And they look back at you and okay, I'm on 90 degrees. And if I'm following on an angle jump, I'm referencing the leader during breakoff, because even as I think that I can go very straight on my radial, I fuck up all the time. And if I can keep looking at the leader every once in a while and just making sure, okay, I thought I was on 45. Yeah, I'm okay. I see that guy. I see this guy. I feel like I'm doing good. I've counted off my people, whatever. If the leader keeps coming towards me, I never have a stable reference point.
Okay, that is an argument that I don't think he brought. If he brought it up, I didn't understand. That's what he was saying. That's hard to argue with. So okay,
I would never get into an argument with JRuss about anything.
Don't
guarantee
get
you win.
Listen, for both of you
so-
guys, in the sense of argument being a lively discussion about an interesting topic, I love arguing.
Okay, so then let me ask you this: does that mean that as a rule, the leader should also never at breakoff, the leader should never stop, like slow down and stop and let the other people go and have space?
No.
Should never do that.
Well, I mean, a lot of things can happen between now and never, but
Okay, yeah, but as a rule,
no. I think the leader should continue straight. There are a couple of exceptions, maybe one. A lot of times when I have a really good flyer in my group, say I'm leading beginner angles for Summerfest, and some friend of mine is like, hey, I never get to jump with you because you're always doing beginner angles. Can I just come on this jump? Absolutely. You're going to stay with me at breakoff, wherever you are. And if you happen to be back flying, I'm going to wait.
You and I did that, remember?
Yeah, and I'm going to dump. And so in a sense, but then you are now the proxy leader because you are continuing in a straight line. And so there is still someone fulfilling that role.
Yeah. Okay. So what about in the situation where it's a small group, but they are somewhat beginners, and I mean, they're not
Sure.
They're good enough that you have a group of, let's say, 3 or 4, right?
Yeah.
And in the jump, people just end up out of position. Maybe the exit, they just get turned around. They just have a hard time. It ends up where you've got a heavy, it's heavy on one side. Mm-hmm. And you as the leader, what do you do in that jump? Do you actually try to move yourself into the middle for breakoff, or do you keep flying? So now at breakoff, you're significantly to one side. So maybe you have all 3 people on one side.
But you're talking about taking a complex situation and making it more complicated without a stable reference. Okay, so 4 people ended up on one side. That means that the person whose line is closest to the leader, closest to me, they're holding my hand for breakoff. Like they're just coming with me, because now the 90 degrees is split 4 ways, which is like 22.5 degrees without getting out a protractor. But if without that stable reference point, like how are people going to know where they're going? I mean, the one guy has to stay with the leader, basically, right? The closest inside line. And if the leader starts moving around, it is absolute chaos.
Really? So you don't at that time of breakoff, you don't think people are able to reference one another and just, you don't think you think that's asking too much?
Look, the biggest angle fly jump that I've done is a 2-plane shot. And it was 44 people, and it was slot specific. But on that jump, maybe the people who were on it, the skill level was so high. Maybe on that jump, you could expect people to understand, okay, this was it's 2 planes in formation. We're the only group. We're going straight north or whatever, Maybe everyone can take in that information. But other than, like, if we took all the organizers of Summerfest and we did an angle jump and I said, Chris, you're on my right, you're the first slot. Nick, you're on my left, you're the second, and just worked our way out to whatever we were going to have, I fucking guarantee you we are not getting the jump that we planned.
Yeah.
And that's with just organizers.
Yeah.
And if the leader suddenly decides, I'm just going to go wherever at Breakoff, that somewhat difficult situation of we intended to have 3 Breakoff waves with 4 people on a side, and you're going to share 90, you're going to share 90, you're going to share 90, and we get everyone out of there, that leader deciding to go a different direction just adds an incredibly unstable element to an already problematic situation.
Yes, I see what you're saying, but you said if the leader decides to just go anywhere, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm not
right, but did you brief that in the beginning? Did you brief what you're going to do in the beginning?
Well, I'm saying I'm saying what should you do, because I think I have briefed that before, where I tell if it's a group of, I mean, because we don't ever take big huge groups at Spaceland. I mean, at San Marcos, we just don't have the skill level to do that. So it's usually a group of 3 or 4. But I think I'm pretty sure I've told people, like, hey, if we end up out of, you're supposed to be on this side, but if it ends up that all 3 of you are over here at Breakoff, we're going to fan out, because in my mind, the priority is maximize separation. And so that was my thought. Well, if maximize separation is the priority, and I say, okay, we're all gonna, if it doesn't matter where you're supposed to be, when we break off, we fan out, and you have to reference everybody. Like, you have to look around and pay attention to where everyone is in the sky, and you fan out. You don't just keep turning regardless of what you do. If you've gotten your distance and you see them going that way, and the leader, to me, it doesn't matter if he's moving a little bit. Like, I'm just going to fan a little bit away from him. I'm not going to go a hard 90 from the leader with a 4-way.
Right.
Like, we can share that. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, what's the best way, the right way that is.
Well,
but when you say if the leader's moving, and I've told that guy to go a hard 90 off of me, and now I'm moving. Okay, that's a good argument. I see that.
And especially for you two guys, because you're gonna be organizing at Summerfest. This is gonna be a thing. My briefings to my beginner groups, I'm gonna have 2 people on either side of me until I feel confident in those 4 people, and then we can add more to the group. But part of the briefing beforehand is, hey guys, this is beginner angle. There could be all 4 of you on the same side. And when or if that happens, you have to do the best you can in that scenario with the space that you've got. And that means you got to figure out pretty quickly, like, I know I'm going to break away. Learning the fundamentals and teaching people the right way to do it is, in my opinion, better than adding a destabilizing element of a suddenly different flight path or no stable reference point for them to use. And again, like, at a real high experience level, maybe people can make that assessment, but I would almost guarantee you, Chris, that at any level, they're not paying attention to the ground. They're only paying attention to the leader. And if suddenly the leader is no longer a stable reference point, it's going to be worse. It's better for those people just to learn, hey, we've got 3 people on the same side. That's a possibility. We've got 4 people on the same side. That's a possibility. What am I going to do if it ends up with 4 people on the same side? Well, number 1, you're going to fucking track hard. And number 2, you're going to learn what it means to take a radial and take it straight. And if you don't have confidence that people can do those things, then the group needs to stay small until they can. But I really disagree with changing your line.
Okay, so in that scenario, you're not prioritizing maximum separation, and that's okay.
I mean, with like saying 3 or 4 people, with 3 or 4 people, you don't need maximum separation. You just need, everybody needs their own radial and needs to get away from each other. Like, I agree with what, if the skill level's low, then the jumpers on that jump are going to be low. As the skill level goes up, then there's more people, which means that they're not going to find themselves all on the same side. Like, having 3 or 4 people on the same side, that's plenty of space for everybody to be able to, at Breakoff, track away and still have plenty of good airspace, in my opinion, as long as they can somewhat track.
I guess what what I was trying to say about that 2-plane shot is even at that level that was super, super high, there's no way I would have said, oh yeah, the leader can just change direction and everyone's going to be okay with that. Everyone's going to not have a stable reference and get away safely. No way. No way. And I mean, Mikey Carpenter was there, Fred, Vince, all of Moktoom, all of Nexus, like people that you've seen on YouTube or whatever, and there's no way I would have trusted that group if the leader just decided to go whatever direction. And if that's true, which it definitely was, there's no way I'm going to introduce that scenario into people that I know are way, way less skilled, way, way less aware. I'm no way. The leader needs to stay straight. And again, like, I can't say never. I don't know what could happen before then, but most of the time that I would call it a pretty hard rule that the leader goes straight at Breakoff.
I mean, a lot of what you're saying is almost exactly what my friend John was saying. I mean, yeah, I mean, very, very, very similar.
So were you just taking a turn being the contrarian, or do you really believe that it's maximizing space?
No, I'm really trying to think this through.
Mm-hmm.
And if your starting point, my starting point was maximize separation. Like, to me, that if that's starting point.
Let me disagree with that starting point. As the leader, your starting point is keeping your little bird safe. And if you don't go straight, but that's a secondary issue. If you don't go straight, there's 3 people without a reference point. And that is way less safe than
hold on. I have to argue with that because you're saying without a reference point, they still have a reference point. We're all referencing one another. There is a reference point. It's like, you're making it sound like they just close their eyes and have nowhere to look, nothing to look at. That's not true.
That's basically what's happening. Yes, it is. Look, if you go straight, that is the 0 point.
That's fine. But if we said, okay, on a belly jump, everybody is referencing one another when they break off. How's that any different?
On a belly jump, you leave from the center point.
Break off, there's no leader. Everybody has to reference one another and find their radial and get away from one. And you maximize separation. How is that any different?
It is different. Normally, a belly jump or a group skydive has a center point that everyone references as they do their 180 from the center and go away, right? But in an angle jump, you're limiting their breakoff to 90 degrees and packing everybody into a half moon shape around the leader. And if the leader doesn't have the ability to go straight, that half moon is now something that is in motion.
Shifting.
It's fluid. It's shifting. There are, Chris, 1000%. You have just confused most of the skydivers.
Okay, I think that's your best argument. I can't argue with that. I mean, I get that. I totally see that.
I can see what you mean about fanning out.
I have a hard time. Putting those Isn't
it better that they understand the basics and fundamentals of angle flying or movement jumps? And it's like, if Nick could have practiced what to do with a canopy collapse, like, do you remember that videographer at Paris who just he would open up? He videoed for my team one time, and he would just collapse on rears and just fucking spiral straight down, and then he'd open up and he'd collapse again and just spiral straight down. It was about the time you were there, 2002, 2003. Do you remember what I'm talking about, Nick?
I don't. I'm trying to.
I can't remember his freaking name.
He was a camera flyer there?
Yeah, he did video for my belly team, and the point that I'm trying to make is, like, if you go to a Flight 1 course, if you go to a canopy course, whatever, you're going to try and practice the difficult things that might come up on a skydive, on a landing, in a semi-controlled environment. Someone has prescribed what's going to happen to you. If you take people out in a 4-way in an angle fly jump, isn't it better if they all end up on the same side, that you've briefed them about that possibility and they learn to handle a somewhat hectic situation with a stable reference point that they can look back and see that they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing, and you can brief them about it afterwards and say, this is what should have happened, but you told them beforehand. This is practice. I mean, small groups are practicing a controlled environment, semi-controlled, so that you can get into a bigger group, right? And if you can't do the basic fundamentals in a little group, well, you can do them in a big group. Would you never take the training wheels off your kid's bike because you're always going to hold the frickin' seat and make sure they go straight? Like, at some point, they've got to learn how to do this correctly, and the correctly means that you are going straight as the leader.
I have a question. I have a comment. Okay, so yes, you're teaching to where you want them to eventually be, right? You want them to eventually have all the skills to do all the things that are necessary to be a proficient, good, safe flyer. And the best thing they could be doing is taking in all the information, actually paying attention to the direction of flight. That's where you want them to eventually be, that they pay attention to that. No, I mean, come on. That is what you want.
Yeah, eventually. Look, guys, I'm just saying, like, if the three of us go make an angle fly jump and I lead, you're looking at me. You're not.
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, that's just, you're just talking about scale there. I mean, now, okay, take somebody who's got 100 jumps and they don't know their ass from last Tuesday and they're trying to follow you.
Come on, man. No, I'm saying you want them to eventually be able to take in that information and pay attention and know the direction of flight. And eventually I just don't see how that's a bad thing. Like, I understand how shifting the 180, shifting that 180 that you have at your disposal to break off and shifting that any direction where it turns back towards another group or back towards jumper. And yes, I get that. But if my goal is training them up to be able to do the best that they can and taking all those other details that you started off with, jump run, all that stuff,
but
it seems like I should be teaching them how do you if we're going to fan out, you got to pay attention to the whole group, reference everybody, and fan out. Don't just go fly anywhere you want, but look at everybody.
But you're teaching people to live eternally in a three-way, because what you're teaching will never work in a six-way.
What? No, it's only necessary when the formation is lopsided. That's the only time it matters. You're teaching them a skill that they might need when the formation is not what they expected.
I think that you're teaching them something that is not consistent across angle jumps.
When is it not consistent? Because if the leader is in the center, if the formation is balanced, then what I'm saying works, because the leader is that spot. So that's fine. If the formation is unbalanced, you've given them a skill and an ability to do something that maximizes separation.
That's
what I don't understand. It seems like I'm adding a skill to their toolbox, not taking it away.
You're adding instability to an unstable situation, in my opinion. And the one thing that you can guarantee to those guys is zero. I'm not going to deviate. I'm going to go straight. And based on your experience as a leader and your skill set, they can then be safer based on what you provide for them. If on the fly you decide it's unbalanced, I'm going to change that line, they don't have the mental mapping to keep up with that, in my opinion. And my point, my story about the two-plane shot angle fly that we did was only to illustrate that those people with thousands and thousands of jumps and ungodly amounts of tunnel time and experience and world champions and some of the best flyers in the world, they would not have kept track of that. And I doubt, and the other thing I was trying to say, at a place that I know well, I'm following a leader, we're moving around, I'm focused on the leader. When I break off, I'm not real sure. I mean, I'm going to look at the ground, but it's going to take me a second to figure out where I'm going. And if the one stable reference point that I have of a leader that's going to flatten out and go straight is suddenly gone, and I think I'm a relatively aware skydiver with a pretty decent amount of experience. Like, I'm lost. I'm going to be a little bit lost in that moment. And I'm still going to track, and I'm still going to hopefully go the right way. But I think you're taking away the one stable element of that skydive.
Okay.
Just like my opinion,
Right.
man.
Well, I'll tell you this. For Summerfest, I will absolutely do it your way.
Cool, man. I normally send out a little. I sent a. You guys got it. It was like try and be a professional, show up on time. The last couple of years, neither one of you would have seen it, but I needed a sandwich when I wrote the bit, and I said in the bit, I'm like, if you decide to do your own thing and don't listen to what JRuss has to say, and it was mostly about angle flying, but kind of about being a professional at work. Our conversation is going to range from, hey, don't do that anymore, to, hey, thanks for coming out. Probably based around how much food I've had that day.
I'll see you later. Don't come back next year.
If you see
there
the
was,
vein, you're in
yeah,
trouble.
it's right here. There was a couple of years ago, there was a person who said that they had been into enough Fly for Life camps that they knew they could safely take people up jump run and get out of the way of whatever group. And I wrote it to the group, and I was like, you will not do this. You will not talk to your people about going up jump run. You will not. And if you don't agree with what JRuss has to say, that's fine. You're just not organizing the Summerfest. You're going to do it my way. And not only are you going to do it my way, but right now in the chat, I want a thumbs up or a confirmation that you hear the words I'm saying and that you agree that you will not go up jump run, because I can just imagine Rook or Anthony or Doug, any of those guys. Hey guys, we're gonna do a little like going up jump run just to collect people, and then we're gonna turn off jump run, and watch their face like the original Raiders of the Lost Ark when their faces just melted at the end of the movie. That's exactly what those three would look like, and then they would stab me through the neck with a pencil, especially Doug.
Well, John,
anyway.
I gotta say, John, if you've listened this far in this episode and you're hearing all this, I'm sure you're smiling. Next time we see each other, just shake my hand. You don't have to say I told you so. You don't have to rub my face in it. Okay, I was wrong. You were right.
Yes,
Chris, he really tried to sway your opinion.
What did you say?
JRuss. You really did.
Yeah, it didn't really move the meter, to be honest. No. No. All right. Well, we're an hour and a half in. What do you think?
Yep.
Did we do a good job educating the community this week?
I hope so.
Nick, what do you think?
I don't think we did. I don't think I did a very good job, but
I think it's great.
It was fun.
I can't wait to get back to SDC. Well, guys, the bus is coming along. I was before the podcast is getting dark. I probably can't do it tonight, but panel number 4 out of 10 total solar panels went up today, and I've got about 5 more days, and I'm going to get all those on there, and then I'm going to drive it to Arizona, and I'm going to fly back to Chicago. But I was going to say, I'm going to tell you when I'm going to be back so we can have some smoked brisket, because Nick does a pretty mean meat smoker.
Really?
You got to hook Chris up with some of that during Summerfest. He's going to.
Yeah, dude, my smoker broke right now.
No.
Yeah, something's up with it, but I'll see if I can't get it up and running or find another smoker to use. I was barbecuing tonight, which pains my soul to use a regular barbecue, but
You godless heathen.
Oh, hey, JRuss.
Yeah.
I'm driving to Summerfest. Did I tell you that?
Okay. No, but you said you might. Yeah.
In the back of my car, I've got your little biltong dryer.
Excellent. Nick, did you hear about that thing?
the biltong dryer?
Yeah. You know what biltong is?
You ever heard of biltong?
I don't know what that is. Is it like a beef jerky?
Yeah.
thing, or?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, okay.
It's it's South African style beef jerky. So I mean, you know how typically jerky is like smoked or cured or something, right? You know, well, biltong. All you do for biltong is you take a cut of beef, and you just soak it in white vinegar for about 5 minutes on each side, just to kill any bacteria. Then you put whatever seasoning you want on it, usually just salt and pepper or something simple. And then you just hang it up to dry. It's just air dried beef. That's all it is. No smoke, no curing salts, no heat, nothing. It's just air dried. So I started making it myself. I work for a company. I do graphic design for a company, and that's what we make biltong. The company does. Um,
Okay.
and so I started making my own at home, and I was just hanging it under my cabinets in my kitchen. So I just have these like raw steaks hanging.
How long you got to let it hang for?
If it's a thin cut, like a half inch, I like them. I like them after about 3 or 4 days. They're perfect. Of course, the thicker they are, the longer you have to let them go. Some people will dry it for like 21 days. But anyways, my wife, she wasn't too keen on me having all these raw steaks just hanging in our kitchen. So I got a little plastic tub and I cut a hole in the end of it and I put a computer fan on it. And then I drilled a bunch of little tiny holes on the other side. And I've got these metal skewers that fit in there. So I just hang the steaks on there, put the lid on, plug in the computer fan, and so it just draws air through there, but no flies or anything can get on it. So it's just my little homemade biltong dryer. So I made one for JRuss that I'm going to bring to him.
Nick, we're going to set that up, and I'm going to make some, and then your life will be forever ruined for having regular beef jerky because this is so much better.
It's good.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's good.
So good. Yeah. All right, fellas. An hour and a half. We're going to sign off. We did our best to educate the community. Oh, you know what? What was the name of the guy that we are going to sign off, but I'm going to make this really quick. Hold on. I forgot to write him back, but I will. I'm just going to say his name if I can get to it. We talked to him. What the heck? Brian Piper.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the guy that was on?
Mhm.
We talked to him.
Yep.
He said he would love to get a copy of the angle test I sent out so he can make sure he understands all the concepts that you talk about as I lead angle and wingsuit jumps at our DZ. I forgot to send it to him, but I will. Which made me think that maybe there's an article in there that needs to be written with like publishing that test because as Chris learned,
No,
it's not the
now
easiest thing to do.
You're going to add a new question to it now. You got a new question.
Don't deviate from your flight path at Breakoff. No, more of like a knife hand. You will do this. But yeah.
Did you
All right.
read the answers yet?
No, because I didn't get everybody's responses, but I really need to go through it because obviously we're pushing up to Summerfest here, and there's pretty clearly a couple areas that people have a knowledge gap. So that was exactly what I wanted, just to make sure that we got the right stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
And then I'm supposed to have a Zoom meeting with Anthony and Tracy to talk about movement stuff for Summerfest. So I probably will hold off on saying too much until that's over.
Cool.
But anyway, Nick, thank you for being with us. I appreciate that my constant pestering finally paid off. And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of our people out there who do watch the show that are going to appreciate getting to hear your story and you know what happened in that moment and how you've incorporated that stuff into your life. So thank you,
Nick. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Really, really nice to meet you, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with you at Summerfest. Hopefully, get to jump together.
Oh, for sure we will. Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. You got any parting words of wisdom you want to share with everybody, Nick?
You know, it's funny. There was something I wanted to bring up earlier, and I've been racking my head in my brain about it, and I can't remember what I was. There was something I wanted to mention, but right now my mind is blank. What
a gift!
Yeah.
I mean, every once in a while, if it can just shut down and go blank, that's not bad.
Sorry, I'm not a very good person to interview.
Oh, this has been perfect, man. This is exactly what I wanted. And I'll finagle it so I get your wife on here coming up pretty soon.
She's much more interesting than I am.
Whatever. Whatever. You're great, dude. We enjoyed having you. Thank you, Nick.
Cool.
No worries.
All right, guys. Thanks very much. And Chris, we're not saying it, but we are going to say that we're here always to support the community and to hopefully spread the word about the master course that Chris has created that's called Krāv, so that people can have access to the combined wisdom of your elders. I don't know what else to say there.
Hey, so okay, Pete's
People-
course.
Yeah.
Pete's course is coming out August 1st.
Okay.
August 1st, Pete's course is going live. I'm really excited.
And if anybody
That's-
didn't hear it, Pete Allen was one of my coaches when I first started getting coaching in the sport. I don't know, 38,000 skydives or 36,000 or something like that,
Yeah.
and 50 years in the sport, and
Yeah.
a wealth of knowledge. So, yeah, makes me feel like a little kid in terms of jump numbers and knowledge in the sport. The guy, he's forgotten more than I'm going to know. So, good course. Yeah.
All right.
Well, cool. So go skydive with your friends, have a good time. Like Nick said, enjoy the moment and do the best you can with what you got at that time. And hopefully Krāv will help you do more and be better.
There you go. See you guys. Thank y'all.
Cool. See ya.